Hey everybody, my name is Phillip Shepard. I'm a local real estate agent located right here in Northwest Arkansas. And today we're talking about how is Bentonville going to cut its housing costs in half? How are they going to do that? So we need to talk about that. And this is part 2. So definitely watch the first part first. So let's talk about that. Hey guys, this is Phil from the future. Oh my gosh, that was a TV show from Disney. Phil the Future. This is Phil from the future. I actually made a part 3 of this whole saga, we'll call it that. So you're currently watching part 2. I just kind of inserted this into the video. So stay tuned for part 3. We're going to be talking about the effects of all this. So we have the why, we have the how, and the effects. So stay tuned for part 3. That'll be coming out in just a couple days, so stay tuned. But let's get back to part 2 now. Let's talk about that. But before we begin, if you'd like and share this video with a friend or family, that would make the world of difference. I try to produce as much content as humanly possible about Northwest Arkansas, obviously. So sharing the video just makes sure that everyone can truly live, work, and play all in NWA. Also, if you haven't been down to Northwest Arkansas quite yet, I made something called the NWA Starter Pack, and it sounds exactly what it is, literally exactly as it is. It's a starter pack full of all the amazing things Northwest Arkansas. So if you want to know about the schools, if you want to know about the hospitals, if you want to know about all the cool things that are happening or about all the downtown sections, if you want all those cool things, literally a package comes right to your home. I ship it right from my house to your house. It's that easy. So enter your information below, address, name, where am I shipping this package to? Just let me know. Where can I ship the starter pack to? Just let me know. And also, side note, it does come with your first free mountain bike, so that's pretty cool. And. It is my favorite 4-letter F word. Free! So enter your information below and I'll make sure they get that package shipped to you right away. All right, so we're talking about part 2 about how Bentonville is going to literally, hopefully, cut their housing costs in half in the next couple years or so. So if you haven't watched part 1, definitely do that first. It's riveting to say the least. I thought it was a great video personally, but I'm a little biased. So this is part 2. So the first part about is the why. Now this part is going to be the how. And so that's going to be kind of broken up in a different section. So I do encourage you, if you want to read a 66-page document of funness about housing development and the Arrow program, link below. Did I read it? Of course I did, because I love that stuff. But what I'm going to start doing right away is we're going to set the stage. We're going to set the standard. We're going to kind of base everything off this one kind of long phrase that is off there. I pulled out of number page 37 or something like that. So I think this kind of capitalizes part of the why and also a little bit of the how. So let me read this directly from the actual page itself. This statement right here is going to be kind of a why and how statement right here, why they're doing this. So the article says they want to create an environment in which developers will build affordably priced housing in neighborhoods with convenient access to jobs, services, and amenities that promote a variety of transportation options, biking, hiking, e-scooters, one-wheels, ensuring our target population lives there and that the city, developers, businesses, and the workforce of Bentonville all benefit. So TLDR, they want to incentivize developers in proper ways to make sure they are incentivized properly to develop those kind of styles of housing, to make sure that everyone can afford Bentonville, Arkansas. Now, before we jump into the different ways they're going to be doing this, I want to talk about really quickly about, again, the why. Why would Bentonville, Arkansas develop all these trail systems that you can and promote everything like, oh, you can travel everywhere in Bentonville and Centerton and all of NWA with just using bikes or this or that or whatever the case is. And then for people not to be able to afford in Bentonville, Arkansas, it seems kind of a little silly. So I understand why the Northwest Arkansas Council is doing all this, because if their big promotion and their big thing is to be able to live, work, and play here, you need to afford it. And so I get why they're doing this. I'm totally on board with this. So let's talk about the how they're going to be doing this. So that's kind of the big question of the day. How are you going to do this? How? How are you going to reduce costs in half? Again, if you want to read this document, link below. But the first part about this is we need to define tiers. So I'm looking directly at the article now. And so there's 3 tiers that they've identified in Bentonville, Arkansas. There's tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. They're really trying to solve housing for all of tier 3 and most of tier 2 and really ignore tier 1 because tier 1's been solved. So tier 3 housing is going to be a salary between $20,000 and $40,000. Tier 2 housing is between $40,000 and $60,000. So basically between $20,000 and $60,000, they want to make sure that you have affordable housing here in Bentonville, Arkansas. Side note, this will be definitely a bellwether plan, like I mentioned in my other videos, for future development of Northwest Arkansas. Obviously, different cities will adapt different things from this, I'm sure of it. Again, if you want to watch my first video about the why, this identifies the different tiers. That usually tier 3 or 2 are going to be teachers, different set of workforce, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, hospital stuff. So the people in those 2 different tiers will eventually have more affordable housing in Bentonville, Arkansas. All right, so number 2, I'm looking at the actual thing right here. It says determining what tools can be used to generate a cost savings funding pool. Now I'm going to break this down for you because that's just a bunch of big city language that we can break down. So essentially what's happening here is there's a lot of funding options between local, federal, state that developers can come in and, because obviously developers are the ones coming in here, designing places, building different scales of places. We know this. So there's a bunch of pools of money that can be leveraged by developers that are not being used at all. And so one way that the Bentonville is going to be doing this is actually helping developers come into play and using these pools of money, so to speak, from different entities across America to help subsidize / low interest rates, obviously lower interest rate loans, or whatever the case is, or grants to some extent, to help subsidize that housing. This way, there's not a huge, massive cost for the developer. So if the cost isn't that massive for a developer, then the cost for building it is cheaper, which means that they should be able to obviously lower the cost of the housing. So I can understand this process, and I didn't understand that there's just pools of money that were not being leveraged by developers, because it's just, how do you know these things? How does a developer always know where to search for different pools of money that can be used to help develop housing, affordable housing, multi-unit housing in different areas? And so that's kind of one way that they're working with it, is actually helping developers do that. Another cool thing is that obviously the city owns a lot of land, and they have considered in the past, and this is part of the document as well, is obviously gifting or granting obviously land to certain developers if they have certain criteria. So that'd be an interesting thing to see how that pans out, because obviously they don't have infinite land, but I'd be curious to see how the city could grant certain parcels of land to developers for certain areas to help them along the process to make sure that it does stay affordable, obviously. Whoa, before we jump on to the next point, I have something brand new called Instant Home Updates. So maybe you're looking to move down to Northwest Arkansas and you're using things like Realtor.com or Zillow.com to search for homes for sale or for rent. Notifications, way too slow. So I made something called Instant Home Updates, and it sounds exactly what it is, literally exactly what it is. It's Instant Home Updates. So enter your information below. Where do you want to move to? What's your name? What kind of square footage? What kind of bedrooms? All the different things that you'd want to know about the home you're looking for rent or for sale. I'll make sure you don't miss a single notification for any of them, all in Northwest Arkansas. Also, every single Friday, I send an email just kind of talking about all things NWA. What's going on here? What new musicians are coming here? What new cities are talking about? What kind of different plans here? All the new businesses moving here? What headquarters are moving here? All the cool festivals, all the cool things that are happening in Northwest Arkansas. Enter your email below, and I'll make sure you get that obviously email every single Friday to kind of keep updated with all things NWA. Side note, probably you will get a little fear of missing out, a little FOMO, so to speak, but I'll make sure you're the most important person eventually when you make your way down to Northwest Arkansas. And number 3, and I feel like this is probably the most important thing that they could do here, and this is just my opinion reading through the articles and obviously the whole thing. Number 3 is actually expediting the process of getting things done. Now, speed always has a cost. The longer the project lasts out, the longer that the developer has to hold the loan at a higher interest rate now, because obviously the current state of where we're at. So what happens is that as the loan is held longer, interest rate goes up, which means that it's going to be cost more money to pay off, be sold off, which means that eventually housing has to go up with it to offset the cost of the actual development. So one way that Bentonville is going to be doing this, and I think this is so intelligent, so smart, they're hiring a position called the Affordable Manager Housing Person, the person dedicated to helping developers expedite the process to make sure that their housing projects get done. Super cool, super smart. One person, one focus to help them. Because the thing is that they're, at least according to the article, or I shouldn't say article, the actual literally package of papers, that they're anticipating to cut development by a year, which means that significant reduction of time frame should enable, obviously, reduction of cost. Now, side note to this is going to be part 4 as well, the next part we're talking about. There is going to be, obviously, circumstances and things that are going to be put in place on developers that if Bentonville is going to help them with all these situations, they're not going to capitalize on the situation. Like, if Bentonville helps with these things, it's going to be, obviously, there's expectations involved. Away from the side note, having an actual affordable housing manager person that's overseeing these projects to make sure that, obviously permitting gets done faster, that we can shuffle things around here. Someone completely focused on making sure that things get done faster. It's a hard value to put on speed. Speed of actual, doing things faster. And so it's cool to see Bentonville actually put a project manager on this, essentially, to make sure developers have the tools in place, can work with, obviously, the pools of money to pull from there faster, to know all these different grants and housing things, to make sure that developers have access to all the money that's available to do these more affordable housing projects. And the number 4 thing about this, and I kind of mentioned this before, is compliance. If Bentonville does these things for these developers, there is going to be stipulations of affordable housing. That is just going to be clear that they're developing these housing, new developments for tier 3 and tier 2 housing. You ain't going to be charging no tier 1 pricing. That's just guaranteed. And so obviously the incentive structure is still there. developers will still make money. They're gonna move things a lot faster. They're gonna be able to turn things a lot faster because Bentonville is helping them along the process. But they ain't gonna be charging no tier 1 housing prices. The whole goal for this, all they're doing with Project Arrow with Bentonville is the fact to develop housing, different styles of housing, not necessarily always single family housing, but different, obviously not massive multiplexing housing like Austin, nothing like that. But there's different styles of housing that isn't always necessarily single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath housing that not everyone needs, of course, that moves here. So they're developing these housing projects that are going to be tier 3, tier 2 housing. And there will be obviously compliance and regulations involved because of the fact that if Bentonville is gonna be helping these developers with this, it's just part of the package. And so I'm excited to see those stipulations be involved because the incentive structure is still there because of the fact that obviously developers are going to do well with these things. But at the same time, there's going to definitely be some things to make sure that it is the goal for Bentonville is to make sure that happens, obviously, for very affordable housing. And so all those things are really cool. Again, if you want to read the 66-page document, go to town. It is riveting. I do love it, actually. But let me talk just briefly as we end this video about what are the big wins here. Because that's the big thing. Is like, okay, words, numbers, blah, 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 how they're going to cut housing in half, and they detail it all in the whole thing, how they're literally going to cut housing in half from 1,500 to 750. So let's talk about the big wins here. So obviously it goes back to the economic flywheel in my first video, but the biggest thing is that Northwest Arkansas has quite a large job shortage because the fact that there are so many businesses that have moved here and businesses are expanding rapidly that we need more people to be here, to move here, to live here, to grow here, to go to college here, everything, because we have so many job opportunities. Now, if housing becomes a little more challenging, to say the least, it's going to be harder to obviously encourage people to move here. Even though we have amazing trail systems, we can do so many things outdoors. You can do things outdoors all year long. So we have great indoor stuff, great community, good things to do, and farmers markets, events, music, the whole thing. It's hard to encourage people to be like, oh, by the way, housing is crazy. So very smart on Bentonville, specifically in Northwest Arkansas Council, to start addressing those needs now. This way I can always say you can live, work, and play all in NWA, and that let's see how far your dollar can go in Northwest Arkansas compared to where you're coming from. But that won't always be the case if these things aren't solved for the future. So that's the first one, is the fact that need a lot of jobs to actually bring people here. We need affordable housing, obviously. Second part of the second win for all this whole Arrow project is, and I said this before, speed of development. It is very challenging to put a price on speed of development because if you can cut red tape, you can say this many parking spots, shore up sidewalks here, do this. If you can make that development faster, yet still have regulations involved with it, there's a hard price to put in that, because if you speed up development, which means more people move here, which means more businesses move here, you can't always put a number to that. But I can tell you that from an exponential standpoint, it will obviously 2, 4, 10, 15x itself with speed, with regulations, of course, making sure it doesn't get out of control. But speed, you cannot always put a price of speed because you don't know always the good things that will come from it, because it is speed of development, cutting red tape, yet still having so many good things in place. The regulations, of course, will make things just so much better. And then the third win of all this, obviously this goes back to my little flywheel economic development thing, is that with more people moving here, jobs expanding, businesses expanding, development happening faster, cutting red tape. And this goes to the fact with like when a state wants to invite new businesses to the area, they cut red tape. They give them tax incentives. They say, yeah, you can bring your business here. We bring your jobs. We love it. So incentive structures are always in place for every single state, every single city. But the thing is, when you have those two factors involved, it just means that obviously there's more people here shopping. That's the big win. And more people here shopping, more businesses will move here, and economic boom. The obviously area will get more tax dollars, which means we can invest more into actual trail systems. We can invest into the university. We can invest into all the different things in Northwest Arkansas. So it's just that cycle happens again, or if you whatever you want to call it, the flywheel. It is so important. That's going to be a big win for those things to happen, because it's just going to be a net gain, a net boom, a very good thing for Northwest Arkansas when this Arrow plan is starting to be implemented across not only Bentonville, but all across all of Northwest Arkansas. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Again, if you are thinking about coming down to Northwest Arkansas, download my 3-day itinerary link below. Maybe you're a adventurer, maybe you're a sports person, maybe you're a foodie, maybe you're a sightseer, maybe you have kids. Whatever it is, there's a 3-day itinerary link down below for you. So go ahead and download it, use it when you get down here. Also, when you do come down here, I can give you the $10 tour, so I can kind of share around the whole area. Bella Vista, Bentonville, Rogers, Fayetteville, Springdale, Centerton, the whole area. Plus, we can check out some homes for sale or for rent and see how far your dollar will go in Northwest Arkansas, compared to where you're coming from. All right, guys, I'll see you next one.